for All Podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you so much for joining us today in a new time. It is 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. We are used to see us at normally at probably at 2 p.m., but now we are at 6:30 p.m. We're trying this. Let's see how it works. And if we like it, we like it. If we see people joining us and enjoying the show, then we'll continue to do it in this. But remember, you can still go to Spotify, to iTunes, to iHeartRadio, to all these podcast channels, and be able to watch us. So that would be great. All right. Uh, First of all, I want to thank you guys for making it. We are getting ahead on the charts for the best, the top comedy podcast. We're doing very good actually. We are at number probably 30 something in the US. We're at number 50 something in actually less than that, 30 something in we were last week in Russia. We're in good and doing good in New Zealand and all these countries. So praise God for that. Thank you for watching. Encourage your friends to subscribe to the show and watch us. So this is good. Well, I got a friend of mine that we used to talk a lot. We used to hang out a lot, and he's a he's a superstar. He's an illusionist. He's a comedian, and he does the huge events. And from cruise ships to Disney to Vegas. I mean, from the biggest shows to cruises. Great guy. I mean, I thought he was Canadian. He's so sweet and nice. Chris Blackmore is a professional magician, comedian, and a speaker. A popular corporate performer, Chris regularly appears and disappears in shows throughout the country and the world. He's chosen to entertain thousands of guests daily at Disney in California and Walt Disney World in Florida. Chris also provides conventions and corporate events with his brand of clean and hilarious entertainment, moving easily between comedy and magic with a sharp gift of improvisation. He keeps the show moving and full of energy. His talent for quick wit and thought provoking humor is balanced by a charming personality that wins over audiences. Amen to that. He has a charming personality. And Chris understands the corporate culture. He does corporates. He does numerous shows in Vegas, Atlantic City casinos, and also in Hawaii. So please welcome my good friend, Chris Blackmore. Welcome, Chris.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Thank you. Well,
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
it's my pleasure.
Where are you now? Are you in California right now?
I'm in my garage right now in San Diego, California. Yeah, I'm in California right now. Uh, During the whole COVID thing, we converted our garage into a studio, and so I'm in my studio.
That is awesome that you're able to, I know I did we have a loft upstairs in my house, and I used to have a gym in it. So I turned it into an office and a studio and put a door. So it's, we're all trying to work and be flexible with that. So tell me, you know what? This is amazing me, Chris. You do huge events like big Vegas casinos, but then at the same time, you go and do a corporate or a smaller. How do you? How do you go from one to another? What is that like?
Well, Nazareth, you do the same thing, and you know that everything is about the connection with your audience. Whether you're doing a show for 5,000 or a show for 50, you need to connect to your audience. You need to find a common relationship with them, and that's what I look for. If we have to use big jumbo screens to make that happen, so be it. Sometimes there's a little delay, and you take a little more time, and it's not quite as intimate, but you make it as intimate as you can, and you share stories, and you just bring personality into the room, and it comes back to their energy.
Right. Now, let me get this question out first.
And I see I made you disappear. Look at that. And he's back.
Exactly. Thank you. See?
Yeah.
Okay. My
And you're
question.
lucky. My wife wanted me out of the house. You got to stay in the house. So good for you.
uh, Tell me, Chris. I mean, we've known you. I gotta share the story before we start, and it's really funny. Remember many years ago when we had the what do you call it? We had the market, the recession in
Yes.
2008,
Yes.
2009. And it's funny, we only get together when there's a pandemic or a recession. When we're doing good, we're on the road. We don't get together. But we had lunch at El Torito.
Yes.
You remember that in Santa Ana, and
I do.
and we ordered the special that day because we were both broke at the time. We ordered a special, which is like the chicken, and it's funny because we're talking and we're encouraging one another, and then I started praying, and while I'm praying, me and you, the waiter brought the chicken, and I'm praying, Lord, thank you because you know what? You said, do not worry about anything. Look at the birds in the sky, you know, how God takes care of them. And I'm looking at my plate and I go, except for that one. And we were dying that day.
We
But
were dying. We were dying. Well, God loves laughter, doesn't he? You know,
yes.
he's
So
perfect
tell me,
timing with a chicken. Yeah.
how is how say to some Christians, some because they don't know who you are, they don't know your walk, you're a godly man. How do they say, oh well, illusions and you know that's of the devil? How do you respond to that?
You know, you get that. Excuse me. Used to get that more, I should say. A little less
Yeah.
so now, because I think they understand that we are not speaking from the belly and conjuring up witchcraft and chanting spells and wishing evil. We are doing card tricks for a large part, and things with rope and coins and audience participation and fun. And I also believe that whether you are a mime or an evangelist, while you're performing your gift that God gave you and you are evangelizing about God, you are doing God's work. And I actually want people to steer clear of any sort of dark arts or Ouija boards or anything of that nature. And I look for entertainment and humor as a way to open up a communication, a dialogue. And people, you've done outreaches, as we all love doing outreaches. And it's so fun
Mhm.
to get the non-Christian into a church, just crossing the threshold, and then to come in and see people laugh and have a good time without any curse words. It's God's blessing.
Now, you're very funny. I mean, you're hilarious. You can do a show without even magic, but why did you choose illusion?
Well, I was a class clown when I was young. I was a smart aleck when I was a teenager, and now that I professional, it's quick wit. But it's that same class clown thing. And someone gave me a book on magic when I was in the hospital for a broken leg, a femur. And I was in the
Mm.
hospital laid up for a while as a 13-year-old. And they gave me a book on magic. And it just piqued my curiosity about how they travel the world. And they rode trains in India, and they were in Japan and China and South America. And I wanted to travel the world. And it piqued my curiosity more out of travel than anything else. And then I looked at what comedians, the places they have to work, and I said, well, magic's a little bit safer than some of the comedy clubs out there.
Now, when is your fan on in the garage?
I'm supposed to turn that off, aren't I?
Let me make you disappear first.
Nope, nope. We have the remote. There we go. Thank you.
Oh, you're so. You know what? The first time so where did you start, and how old were you, and what was that? What was your first trick?
My first trick, I was a child in school, and we had a magician come, and he did a little trick where he poked a pencil through a piece of glass, and it just amazed me. And then afterwards, he sold those, and so I bought one, and it stuck with me. And that kind of piqued a curiosity for it. And then later on, someone gave me the magic book, and I learned the manipulation, learning you didn't have to buy things so much, and you could do it just with sleight of hand and such. And it allowed me to be funny on stage um, without having a class around me.
And now, when was the first time you did a big venue, a big theater where you had to do? a big a big trick for the first time?
Um, my wife and I were backstage. They had set up a nice stage, and it was for on the Queen Mary in Long Beach. For those who are familiar, I think worldwide know the
Yes.
Queen Mary is now a hotel. And I'll never forget because we were hired by Pacific Bell, which later became AT&T or part of AT&T, and they were
Yeah.
selling people on the fact that they now have phones that come in the size of a suitcase, and you can go in a car and drive around and have this phone connected. And they were trying to get investors, and I am backstage with my beautiful wife. Blackmore Gold was our illusion name. Dolly is her nickname, but I was backstage with Dolly, and we're laughing, going, "Phones and phones! Oh, come on now, who's going to put their money into this?" So that's my first bad investment. Um, but we had to do a large illusion show, and we were nervous, and we rehearsed nonstop and went out there and had a mistake here or there, but overall the client was very happy, and you know I should have bought shares.
So, what's the biggest illusion you do? What's the biggest, trick? What do you call it? An illusion, a trick, or
It's an
what?
illusion. For the biggest one, we have one that's over 14 feet tall, where I put it's a tall tower, and my wife goes up on this tower, and we raise a curtain, and then in a split second, she's out in the audience in a puff of smoke, and usually my daughter or someone else is replaced her inside the tower, so that's a double switcheroo, and it takes about 4 hours to set up.
And
Yeah.
of course, we're not gonna ask you. You never ask an illusionist how you do the trick. Well,
No, no,
but
we won't. We won't do
unless
that.
you want to sell me the tower, you have to explain it to me.
Well, just like the magician with the pencil through glass. If you want to learn it, yeah.
So, what do you call it? How did you become a believer in Christ? How old were you? What happened? Were your parents believers?
I was raised Catholic. My
Hmm.
parents were not believers whatsoever. They just sent us to Catholic school, and when I left Catholic school, I never looked back. I did not have a faith. I knew the stories of Jesus. I knew the stories of God. I knew the stories of the Bible. I didn't know Jesus. And so I meandered through life, got in some trouble, had some good times, had some bad times, met my wife. We went on to have some kids. And while we were in Orlando, Florida, working for the Disney company, we got involved with a church that was literally a cult. And not
Huh.
knowing that, yeah, and not knowing that we were getting drawn into this cult because they met our every need and they were there for everything. And oh my goodness, it's almost like they were mind readers. Well, they were, and our good friend Ken Sands,
Oh
um,
yeah, I
uh,
love Ken.
Ken, he's an illusionist and an apologist. And he steered me straight and my wife straight and said, "You're in a cult. Go find yourself a good biblically based church there." And he recommended a couple, and we did. And we went to the First Baptist Church of Orlando, and
Oh,
yeah, and found out this was the path. And we searched before that. My wife and I searched. We looked into Hinduism, Taoism, metaphysical. Chris, we did the whole search for something, for meaning. And God was patient. God was patient. 37 years old, and I know I'm
wow. So yeah,
39
you
now.
wow, you accepted Christ. Yeah, you weren't. So what do you call it? You were living in Florida, or you guys were working just in
We were
Florida?
working for the Disney company.
Yeah.
My wife and I were doing illusion shows in the Magic Kingdom, which, for those of you that have been to Disney, it's the Disneyland part of the Magic Kingdom there, where they have multiple things. The Magic Kingdom itself is the Disneyland portion of it, of Orlando.
Mm.
And so we were in the Diamond Horseshoe here in California. It's called the Golden Horseshoe, and we would do 5 to 7 shows a day, 5 days a week. And after about 6 months of this, and we had young kids, my wife said, "I want to be a mom. I do not want to do this and leave my children with other people," which was the best decision we've ever made in our life. and she went on to raising the kids while I would go, and they allowed me to do a solo show there. And I went on and did 5 years of as Blackjack Blackmore in the Diamond Horseshoe Saloon Review and Medicine Show, with characters like the MC, Dr. Bill Yalater,
Oh
our
no.
piano player Jingles, and we had Can Girls, the singing cowboy, and I had a very nice premiere spot in the show where I would do 15 minutes, and I brought up over, oh gosh, I think it's over 10,000 children on stage, one at a time, but
Yeah.
over the course of some shows.
Now, what is it like working for the Disney company? I mean, people hear Disney, and some people think, "Oh, they're amazing," and other people. I have a friend, Bobby Miller, who's actually watching. He used to work with Disney.
Hi, Bobby.
Used to, so you can say whatever you want.
Well,
So,
let's put this in perspective. This was 1994 to 1999. Things were different in the world. Things are different at Disney. Nowadays, I don't agree with a lot of the things they're doing, but I don't have a say in that anymore. But at the time, it was wonderful in the sense that I truly learned about guest caring for guests, as they come into your park, and you have to go through Disney 101 and things like that. It was a blast doing the shows for the people, but sometimes it was a mill. You're churning it out. At Disney, you're not the star. The mouse is the star, or the current hit movie, or the current, marketing scheme, whatever it is, or the classics. The characters, the Snow Whites, the Tiggers, all that. So those are but people would come in and truly enjoy our show. It was fun, 45-minute, fun-filled show, and had some crazy kids up there. I'll tell you that. We had some good times with them.
now, were they like the Amazon? Like they work you for the least amount of money, or were they nice to you? Were they treating you well?
I was an independent contractor, so they were nice to me, and I set my price. We agreed on a price, and everything worked out fine. There were a lot of employees that loved working there. I personally, after a good 7 years of it, 5 there, and then more over in Anaheim, I kind of burned out of the theme parkness of it. Because even though it's the best theme park in the world, it's still a theme park, and you're churning. So you lose a little bit of personality, in my opinion, there. Other my
Uh,
little there, yeah.
okay, I have a question from Sarah. It says, "I wonder, was the craziest kid Chris ever had on stage? Who was? Have you
Oh,
had
that's a great question, Sarah. Thank you. There's crazy. There's a couple crazy. I've had kids drop their drawers, and it's so a reference. I always brought up a 4 or 5 year old boy or girl. I always tried to bring up a 4 or 5 year old to the best of my ability, because they're just the perfect age and the perfect response for what I was doing with the magic trick I was doing. And we've had them pull down their bottoms and kick me and punch me and all, but the one that touched me the most was the most interesting one, and I use it to this day for my corporate shows when I talk about a guest service. We had a boy up there, and I was doing my show, and we also had Jingles, who was the piano player, and he would accompany me, and I'd do my show, and he'd play accents and fun stuff along with it, and all of a sudden Jingles went dang and hit a sour note, and I looked at him, and he nodded to the kid, and that's how piano players point when they're playing like this. And I nodded to the kid, and I looked at the little boy, and he's holding a handkerchief out like I asked him to. It's part of my gag. His arm gets tired. It's what I want him to do. He's doing it. And I look back, and I look down at Jingles. I go on with my show, and he's a little harder. And that's when I look over, and I see that this little 4-year-old boy, and he was English. I remember him very well. He came up without this puddle that all of a sudden he had under his feet. And
Ah,
yeah, and so this little boy, through nervousness, was playing along and having a good time, but he had an accident up on stage. Now, Disney, what do? This is the happiest place on earth, and everyone has a great experience. So the whole team went into action. They shut down the stage lights and turned up lower lights so we could bring this young man in front behind a little curtain so he couldn't be seen from the waist down. They came out and darkened the stage, mopped the stage. Someone went across and got a T-shirt because we have what's called a guest moment. You can say, I need this for a guest moment. Came back, and I would normally make a balloon animal at the end of this. And
Uh-huh.
as I go to make a balloon animal for this, I hear a tink from the piano player, and there's Jingles pointing to this T-shirt that they had gotten me, the staff or management had ran and gotten for me. And so now we put this on this little boy. It went down to his ankles. It was a big old T-shirt. And he was, tears me up a little bit. He was able to walk back through 300 people back to his seat in the back with never being embarrassed. No one ever
Oh.
knowing, as far as we know. And his mom came back about 30 minutes later as I was standing on the porch. I used to just people watch on the porch. And she came back with tears in her eyes. And she said, thank you. And she said, I asked my son if he needed to go potty. And the little boy goes, no, I already went. So
That's so nice of the staff and Disney. It makes me
that's
appreciate
Disney.
them.
That's Disney.
Oh wow! Now then, you move to doing cruise ship. You do a lot of cruise ships.
Yeah, we did cruise ships earlier in our career, and then right around 2008, when the economy hit and my corporates dried up, I went back to doing cruise ships again and traveled the world performing on the larger stages. They're a lot of fun, the big stages.
Tell me about cruises because people go on a cruise ship. I've personally never performed on a cruise ship. I was asked to do it a few times, and when they told me I have to be gone for a week, and my kids were young, I could not take it. But now if anybody in cruise ships, I'll take it now because my kids are older. But how do they? I heard that sometimes the performers sleep with the crew, like next to not with the crew. They sleep on like and they
That's
don't
been known
sleep
to
in
happen
regular.
also, Nazareth. Yeah.
They don't sleep in cabins. They don't give them cabins. They sleep with the staff under on a different. Tell
There
me all
are
about. I'm intrigued to know about it.
there are varying degrees. There are crew cabins, there are staff cabins, and there are passenger cabins. I've stayed in all three. I prefer the passenger cabin, but sometimes I prefer staff cabins because they're like a passenger cabin. They're out of the passenger hallway. You're not with all the passengers, so you don't have to get dressed up every time you want to step out your door. You're
Uh-huh.
near staff gym and staff dining and things like that. But in reality, my wife prefers to be in the cabins. And at this point in our career, we're very blessed that we pretty much work on, in guest accommodations. Every once in a while, I will work in a staff cabin, but these days not so much. But you know what? You work your ways up through the rank. Look at the hotels we stayed at when we were young that we would never
That's
approach
true.
these days. You know.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. So, what's the best cruise ship? I mean, you've been on cruise so many. Which one? If someone needs to go on a cruise ship right now,
Well,
which?
if they want elegance and class, I would recommend Silver Sea and Regent. Those are wonderful upscale cruise lines. If you want elegance but a little more less snooty, should I say?
Ah,
There's some upscale brands that are little niche brands called Azamara, and they're a product of Royal Caribbean. And then there's a whole bunch in the Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Princess Cruise Lines, where they're general America. You're gonna get your Marriotts and your Hiltons of cruise lines, and they're wonderful. And middle America go to there. They have a lot of activities, a lot of things to do, and you can get quarantined on one now these days if you wish.
now, when you do a cruise ship, let me. So they call you go and spend a week. So how many shows do you do when you're on those cruise ships?
Depending on the ship, sometimes as little as one evening a week where you do two shows, an early and a late. But other ships, I'm working 4 to 5 nights a week, which is what I prefer. Um,
Oh, so sometimes you do one night and you have to stay on the ship the whole week.
Holland America, you do one night a week. It's a very quiet cruise line. It's little elderly, wonderful crowds, lovely audiences, not a lot of excitement on them. You have one night that is your night, and you got to, knock it out of the park on that night. And the rest of the week, you're a passenger. Yeah.
Wow, and you're treated like a passenger
You're
and
treated like a
taking.
passenger with respect for that, you realize you work there and you're not going to be, you're going to be gracious if there's guests ahead of you and things like that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Now, what do you call it? So, when you do 5 shows a week, are you doing the same show, or you have to do different shows?
On Norwegian Caribbean lines, I need to do about 2 hours of material. I have two 45-minute shows and then a 30-minute teaching / show. It's really a show where I teach magic, but it's a show.
Hmm.
So I will repeat some of those shows during the course of the week, but people come to my one show and then you tease them to come to the other show, and you come to that and then you tease them to come to your your teaching show, which is where you sell all your products. So
Oh.
yeah. So
Now, would you prefer doing the huge shows, the big, where there's a lot of preparation, a lot of equipment, or would you rather do this a cruise ship or a
well,
Disney?
right now what I do, and as you know, is I work in Hawaii a bit at a place called Warren and Annabelle's, and it's in Lahaina on Maui, and it seats maximum full pack the capacity. It seats 90 people, and it is
Wow.
just a perfect environment to do a intimate magic show where I don't have to build big props. I work with some of the best close-up workers in the world there, and then I follow and I do the comedy segment. We each do an hour, and then I close with an hour comedy magic. And it's intimate. The people are right here. You can touch them back when you could touch people in shows, and
Yeah.
you're just, that's my favorite thing to do. As big a audience as you can get is wonderful, but there's a certain, rooms are warm, right? Nazareth. Some rooms are warm. Some rooms don't have that same warmth to them. This room just feels like a warm blanket when you go into a nice crowd. Yeah.
Wow. Bobby's asking, do you need a sound engineer? Oh, he's a sound engineer. He's trying to sell himself. Oh, okay. No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If
Something about Hawaiian cruise ships, may I imagine?
they have on their own. If you guys have any questions, like if you wondered something about an illusionist or a magician, what they do, you can ask it, and if we see it, we can ask. But what was the most embarrassing thing that happened to you while you were performing, Chris? If you remember, I'm sure there's few.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what set me off kind of on a comedy career. And I don't want to say it was embarrassing, but I was very young, and my audience was Jamboree, Boy Scout, Cub Scout Jamboree, some 1,400 at the Anaheim Convention Center. What a huge show. And I'm literally 15 or 16 years old in front of this huge
Wow.
crowd. Always felt comfortable. God has always given me and you that grace to be. We're more comfortable in crowds, I think, than we are, in private
Alone.
sometimes. And I have a clear tube, and I put a red handkerchief in, a yellow handkerchief, and a blue handkerchief in this clear tube. And you go, and you blow them out, and they go to the air, and they come fluttering down, tied together. Except I went, whew, and down came 3 handkerchiefs, separated, not tied together. And I'm like, uh-oh, I did something wrong. And the crowd's laughing. I'm like, okay, well, I like laughter. So I stick it in again, red, yellow, blue, and I do what I think is the magic secret. And whew, 3 handkerchiefs come out, red, yellow, blue, and it doesn't work. And they're laughing even harder. Well, I'm kind of baffled, but I like it. And I throw that off to the side, and I grab the traditional linking rings. But when I had grabbed or packed them for my show, I forgot a very important one. Let's just put it that way. So I went to do my linking rings, and it didn't work. And I just said, how many have ever seen a magician do this? They all raised their hand. I threw it to the side, and they laughed like crazy. And from then on, I said, I'm doing comedy. I'm doing comedy. This is just too much fun. But
Oh,
Yeah.
that's fun. When you do the big illusions, Amy's asking, how do magic happens when the magic man cut the person in half? I'm sure you've done that to your wife. I mean, not, on stage, not in the garage.
Not in the garage. Well, that's where we rehearse. But yeah, we've had a trick we've done where she's cut in half, she's cut in thirds. I have one where she's filled literally with swords. I'll tell you a funny story because I'm going to avoid answering how it's done. You'll watch it
Right.
because
You
I
never
work
asked
around
an
this. Yeah.
illusionist. Yes.
We're at Disney, and my wife is in the illusion show where we're doing it at the beginning of it. And I put these swords into this box, and she throws them out and comes out all shredded as if she's been stabbed by all these swords. Very comedy bit. She comes out all shredded. Well, Disney did not like her being shredded. That's not Disney look. So
Right.
every night they would sew the little shreds up into neat little tears, and it didn't look right. It wasn't magically right. So every day my wife would tear the little things, and she'd come out all shredded. And every night they'd sew up her little shreds, and we go, we really want to shred. They said, look, you're keeping us employed. The seamstress goes, do it every night. We don't care. You're keeping us employed. Don't worry about it. And so every night they'd sew them up, and every day we'd tear them, and she'd be shredded. And that's how we cut a girl in half.
Okay, so if you think you didn't get the answer, Amy, you didn't. They don't. Yeah, you normally do not ask an illusionist or be in the room in the back in the green room when they're prepping their stuff. I always like get out of the room. I never ask them anything because that's a talent. That's a gift that you guys have. Not anyone can do magic. You gotta be fast. You gotta be but you're very funny about that. Anything happened to you while you're traveling? Anything in bed like you can't find you
Oh
lost your
my
luggage?
goodness. My wife and I were on a tour of the South doing comedy clubs. The comedy stops. I don't know if you ever did those back
I
in the
remember
day.
it, yeah.
Yeah, comedy somethings. And we were leaving Houston on a Sunday afternoon to do a show Monday night in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And we were driving at a minivan. My wife is pregnant. So we're driving and we're driving, and now she wants to sleep. I have to keep driving. So we've got a bed in the van, and she's sleeping back before seatbelts and all that were a big concern. And I've turned the radio off because I want her to sleep. And I'm driving through the night, Louisiana, going the panhandle, turning down. And as I look at my watch, I go, well, we can get a hotel now and sleep a little bit before we have to move on the next night. Pull over, there's no hotel. No hotel. Go down another exit, no hotels. And I see all these cars coming the other way up the Florida Turnpike. All these cars. And I'm just driving, and this is silly. So now it's literally like a Monday morning at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm going, why can't I find a hotel? And I ask a guy, and he goes, the hurricane. I go, what hurricane? He goes, Hurricane Andrew. Was Andrew or Aaron, one of these hurricanes, was coming through. One of the devastating one in 1991 or something. Or two was coming in, and I'm going into it, not listening to the radio, hearing a single thing, heading straight for it, and all of Florida is going the other way. And we ended up parking next to a building that night and hunkering down. We could find nowhere to stay, and it got windy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Michael said, Chris, are you always striving to learn something new in magic? And does magic change with the times? Has magic changed from when you started to now? Good
Yes.
question.
Yes, I always try to learn something new, and it changed because these new kids are just amazing. Their skills, Shin Lim and all these close-up magicians do this amazing stuff. It doesn't always translate into live shows, which is our forte. And so that's why we try to do new things, because we get booked again by the same people over and over. And as Nazareth has a new joke, he puts a new joke in every, 3 years, right? Nazareth?
A whole new show about 3 years you'll have a whole new show,
A
Terry.
whole
Yeah,
new show.
almost.
And so we put new jokes, new shows together so that we can get rehired by the people that liked us the first time.
Uh, Someone was asking, how did you meet your wife?
Oh, how
Yeah.
fun. I was going to go to Cal State Fullerton with a degree in business and get a degree in business. I'm at Orange Coast College, and I had to take one more class. I had to take a theater art, well, a liberal arts class, and because I did all business stuff, and I said, "Oh, I'll do theater." And this is actually relative to meeting my wife because I had stopped doing magic at the time. I was a young college student, and I was more interested in cars and other things, and I stopped doing magic. And I meet my wife there, and I asked her to go to a theater we had to go to see a play, and I used it as an excuse, and we started dating. And for our final, we had to do some sort of theater thing, and I didn't want to be an actor. I said, "Can I do a magic trick?" And the teacher said yes. And I went back in my closet and grabbed my box of magic out from my younger teenage years, and I fell in love all over again. Within
Oh,
minutes, I said, "I want to be a magician." And I told my dad, "I'm not going to be a business major. I'm going to get a degree in theater." And let me tell you, when you hear a Marine get upset, you hear a
oh,
Marine get upset. So that was interesting, yeah. But I met my wife in that, and we stayed together, and since then, since 1981,
how long you guys been married?
we've been married 29 years. What's the joke? We've been married 29 happy years, 31 total.
Oh,
Um,
we've known each other for two. We've been married for 29. We've known each other for 2 years old. That's Thor Ramsey joke. Yeah. Uh, Bobby was asking Chris, how has your walk with Christ changed how you do your magic?
Oh, tremendous. We used to do a lot more of the Vegas shows in Atlantic City and things like that. And I was never dirty, but I was always kind of PG, 13, risque, maybe venture into our territory, something like that. Well, that changed overnight, and I started doing clean performances, and that changed tremendously. And then we started doing church shows, which is just a blessing. I love doing them, and I think they're struggling a little bit right now. The churches are, but I look forward to getting back in front of live church audiences, and because especially the outreach portion of it, where you're able
Yes.
to let. I mean, as an ex-Catholic, right? Technically, I think I'm still Catholic on their rolls. You know, stepping into another church is a big deal. And
Right.
for lay people to step into a church is a big deal. So when they can have an outreach and they can get excited about an illusionist or a comedian or a juggler or something who is bringing the word of God to them through their entertainment, it changed me completely.
That's amazing. Now, let's go back to your wife. What's her stage name? Gold?
Gold, yeah, we were Blackmore and
Yeah.
Gold.
What attracted you to her? Sarah's asking.
She's
What have you
beautiful.
noticed about
First of
her?
all, she is beautiful. She loved my dream of wanting to become a magician. That's a hard sell. I got to be honest with you. Um, she's kind. She's kind. That's the number one thing. She's kind and loves children, and I looked for those qualities even long before I was a Christian.
L-
You know,
Let me
God,
ask you
God,
this.
God did us good too because we became Christian at the same time. So that's kind of
Oh
rare.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. It could have one of you could have said no, and then that would have made it hard for you guys.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: have you ever been on the road or on a cruise ship and go, "I hate my career. I want to be home."
Yes. Yes. Um,
Uh,
it's hard to say I hate my career. I hate the traveling
the
sometimes.
traveling.
The
Okay.
absence, the traveling is very. It takes a toll. It takes a toll.
What kept you faithful to your wife, being on these long trips?
Oh,
Gone.
uh, observing others who weren't. That's a big deal
Oh,
to me.
that's good answer. Oh,
Yeah. First of all, I love my wife, and I would do nothing to hurt her and hurt my children too, because they would be devastated. And I'm a firm believer in turning and running the other way. I don't sit there and try to battle temptation. I turn and run like a coward, baby. I'm gone. I'm
smart.
out of there. You know.
That's a great answer because you know what? I'm like you. I tell people, I tell my kid, I said, I don't trust myself. I do not trust myself. I will not be alone with a woman in a room.
Nope.
I will not be
No.
alone in. I will not do that because I don't. Number one, I don't trust myself. And always something I learned and it's really helpful is always think if you want to fall to a certain temptation. Doesn't have to be adultery or doesn't have to be, you know what? Just think of all the consequences that can happen. The
Yeah.
embarrassment, the it can ruin your career, all these years, reputation, your self-respect, your loved ones' respect for you. So when you think it's of all these things, really, it makes you run, like a scaredy cat. You run away. That's a great answer, Chris. Um,
Yeah.
Tell me, you guys were living. I remember before the recession we had. You were this guy that's like have the nicest what do you call suburban. You had the boats. You had a subway. You're doing very well. And then what did you do? You said you and your wife tried to you did something before even the pandemic happened. What did you guys
We
do?
we at 2008, 2009, when corporates basically dropped out. That was I was riding high on corporates. I was running, doing great, flying from here to there to here to there, and that all stopped overnight. And as much as I liked going over to cruises to make money, you don't make the kind of money you make on corporate events. And so, gosh. I'm freezing here because I kind of lost your question for just a moment because I
The
got.
question is, what made you downsize? Why
Oh,
did you
thank you,
down?
thank you. Yeah, and we had the boat, we had the pool, we had the big house on the cul-de-sac and the suburban, all that stuff involved in everything, and about killed me. It was such a load of time, money, commitment, just hurry all the time. That when our kids got older, we said we're downsizing, and so we moved down. We bought a farm. We bought an acre, and we actually have developed an acre from nothing to where we have a studio, we have a house, we have a separate house there that our son lives in. And we intend to do farming and get back to the land on this thing.
Tell me
Complete
more about
opposite.
that.
Complete
Tell me
opposite.
more. A magician doing farming,
I
Uh,
tell you what, it's been the best for my health. I'm out there. We're digging weeds and we're digging dirt, and I'm doing a lot of construction and things like that. And since we've had basically a year and a half off, other than a handful of Zoom shows, it's been some time to work on the property. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, what do you call it? I don't want to get much to it, but I remember you used to do speaking. What did you speak on when you were doing serious speaking for corporates and for other events?
Well, I speak on guest service, and I still do. I What happened was when I was with Disney, I started doing shows for them for the Disney Approach to Quality Service program. And
Mm.
it's where Fortune 500 people would send people down to Disney and they would get training and guest service from Disney. And I used to present for them, and I did it for years. And then when I finally left Disney, it dawned on me that I have all this information. I could create a program of my own. And so I did. And I kind of got picked up in the healthcare industry. And excuse me, I have a program called CARE, and it's a compassion based program for patient excellence and guest excellence. And it's using Disney techniques combined with, compassion for care of patients. Okay.
Well, what does your dad think of your career? If when he was he
Well,
alive? Is he?
he passed. And I think he would love it because he passed when I was relatively young, and he came to one show, and I still have the cassette somewhere where I hear him laughing on it. It was just a cassette, just an audio recording back, and I hear him laughing on it, and he was like a generous laugher for me that day. So it's like, okay, I think he just supported it. He came around. He came around. He knew, you know what? I guess a parent knows what their child is. You know, I just
You think
who I am.
you think your son would try magic? Will do any performance?
No, but my grandson might. Our daughter's
Oh,
boy. He's very interested. He's done a few things already. He's 5.5, and he's got a couple magic tricks he does. So yeah, so it might have skipped a generation.
what do you tell younger people who want to try this? What do you call it? Try the magic thing. Do you say go for it or get away from it, or what do
Well,
you?
I always encourage the hobby. I don't encourage the career per se unless there's someone who's you can see as maybe guided toward that and going towards that. But I encourage the hobby because it's a great hobby. You learn dexterity. It's great if you're shy. You can meet someone new, and just by doing magic tricks, and it gives people who maybe aren't athletically inclined a skill or a power, so to speak, that makes them feel good about themselves. Not from fooling people, but from being able to do something that entertains people and helps them have a good time. And so, yeah, I encourage the hobby of it. The career, well, you don't have enough time for that, Nazareth. That's
Oh, not for me. But how did the pandemic affect you personally
well, I was in
and men?
Hawaii on March 15th. Got a call from our boss saying time to go home for a couple weeks. I left my magic there, thinking I'm going to be home and back in a couple weeks because I'm on kind of a 2 to 3 week rotation with Hawaii with another good friend of ours, Dana Daniels.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, we do
With
we
the
do the comedy spots there. So if I'm not there, Dana's there. If Dana's not there, I'm there. So, um, and anywho, we came home and all of a sudden nothing. And we scrambled financially. We did do some Zoom shows, but it wasn't my cup of tea.
right.
And Warren and Annabelle's, which is the Hawaiian theater, sponsored some, and so we tried to create that spirit. I would try to feel like I'm in Hawaii by charging myself to park. That helped a little bit. Yeah, and if my wife and I would go out, we'd pay double for the food and say no, take twice as long to deliver it. So those things help.
You feel like you're in Hawaii. I was in
Feel like
Hawaii
you're in
at the
Hawaii.
same time.
Yeah.
The same time. I left March 14th. I
Ah,
was doing a conference and everybody on the plane was so quiet. Nobody
yes.
wanted to talk and it was scary.
Yeah.
We So your stuff was still in Hawaii.
Yeah. And so we shipped some of it back, and it's just been amazing. I really didn't perform much for that entire time, but God's a blessing. God had other things going on in our life that needed my attention to be here and to be present with my family and not be distracted by anything else. And it was some serious stuff, but it's all been resolved blessedly. And so God had better plans for me, and I know everyone had a different experience with it. I would have liked to have you know more income, but God provides, always has,
Amen.
always.
What would have been what would have been your backup plan if magic didn't work for you? That's Michael asking.
Whew, well, that's a tough one. I'm skilled in certain things in graphic arts and video editing and things of that nature. I could probably scrape together a living doing those things with throwing some Uber and things like that. But in reality, a Bachelor of Arts degree in theater, well, you draw your own conclusion there. I never wanted to have a backup plan, though. That was my personal goal. I said, I'm going to make my living doing this. And I have for the most part. I mean, there's been here or there, but for the most part.
Same here. I'm
Yeah.
like I didn't want a backup plan. I want to burn my ships because I don't want to say, "Oh, if this doesn't work, I'll get into." Are you ready to get back on the road? Are you?
I took my first flight to Hawaii recently and did 2 weeks over there. It was it was bittersweet, I guess. It
Mm.
was great to be in front of live audience again. Just fantastic. That's what we live for. We love that. I mean, as performers. But the whole airport thing again, it's like I could have done without that. They can move Hawaii over here a little closer. Okay.
It's funny. I just got I'm teaching at a church in San Diego this weekend, and there's another event I'm doing, and I'm trying to book hotels. And it used to be, I mean, before the pandemic, or during you book a hotel, like let's say a Marriott or a Hilton, for $100 a night, $110 a night.
Yeah, yeah,
$400 this weekend. $400. This is a courtyard. I'm not talking. I'm not talking. Like
yeah.
big, big 5-star hotels. This is a Courtyard Marriott, $400 for a Saturday night. I was like, okay, you know what? I guess I'm gonna drive early. Get up early and drive. $400. You can't book a hotel. I mean, rental cars, $200 a day.
Oh yeah.
Everything is. Yes, it's just everything is exploding, and I don't know if it's because a lot of people are traveling, tired of being home, so there's a demand, or there is less workers, or less cars to rent, or less. I don't know.
In Hawaii, cars are renting for as much as $1,000 a day.
Wow.
Our business actually leased 2 cars because it was cost effective to do that. Yeah, the people are renting out their own cars. They're full up there. Well, they sent all the cars away a year ago
Right.
because there was no one using them, and now they need them all back. So I don't know
Wow.
what's going on, Naz. I don't know, but that's venturing over into politics, and I don't want to get there. I just think
No.
it's getting expensive though out there.
Right. What keeps you going? What keeps you going, Chris? When things are not going the way you are, the calendar wasn't as full as should be. What
Well,
kept you
my
going?
my faith by far kept me going, knowing that I was going to be provided for one way or another. I mean, I just knew that. I don't have that kind of worry. I mean, there were worries, but it's like I know we'll eat. I've never not eaten in my life. It's God will provide for us. He'll make it happen, and He's doing this for a reason. I may not understand this reason right now. That kept me going, and the fact I want to be an example to my children. My grandson.
Wow. There's what do you call it? There's a question that was asked earlier about what would you like to grow in your garden now that you have, as a magician who's traveling on the road performer, now you're gardening. What are
Oh,
you growing?
this is ridiculous. So we've done, first of all, zucchini, which is just a plague almost. We love zucchini, but boy, zucchini, tomatoes. We've done watermelons, which was hit and miss. We've done pumpkins, uh, radishes, onions. The basic
Well,
vegetable variety I'm starting with. I tried potatoes. It didn't work. I thought potatoes were supposed to be easy to grow. I couldn't figure out potatoes. My strawberries have been delicious. The birds love them.
the
Um, yes, they are
the
thrilled with them. They're saying, grow more, tweet, tweet. Uh, yeah, so that's it. I just grow. I want to get somewhat self-sustaining. Somewhat.
mm,
Yeah. I'd like to have the ability to provide a bunch for myself. We have chickens, and also we'll be doing eggs and things like that. We're waiting for
no
them.
cow, no
No
cow.
cow. We're allowed a cow. We're in an agriculture area. We're allowed 1 cow per acre, and we have 1 acre, so we might just have to have a cow. You know.
Don't have a cow.
No.
No, you don't want to be upset. No, I mean, don't have a cow. Get it? Stupid joke. Hey, what am I doing? What do you call it? I remember, I don't know if you remember. We both have something. It's like we both have like some kind of like asthma, runner's asthma. I remember one time when I had a comedy club, I had you headline. And while you were headlining, you somehow, people think you were joking. You were like, I need an inhaler. Or
I needed an inhaler. Yes,
you
I
needed an
remember that.
inhaler. I remember
Yes.
that, and I started panicking, and I mean, not panicking. It was like I need to find an inhaler, and they go, no, 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 he's joking. I'm like, no, no, I know. When I need an inhaler, I know the feeling. So I started running to the church across the street or something, and I think I found you an inhaler,
You did.
and yeah, and brought it to you on stage. But it was funny how people thought you were joking
Well,
or
there,
trying.
there you go again. Is there's the Disney principle right there. You knew, you went out, you did what you needed to do to make this happen, and it's funny how you say the guest thought it was serious. Remember the tsunami back in, what was it, 2011, 2000?
Uh,
I'm at Warren and Annabelle's, right?
mhm.
And John, the other magician, is on, and he does an hour, and I just kind of wait while he does his show, and I see people coming out of his show checking their phone. I'm like, okay, well, that's weird because they don't usually leave his show. He's very entertaining,
Yeah.
and see more people come out check their phone, and Next thing I see my phone blowing up, and it's Dolly, my wife, saying, "You got to get off. You got to get off the island. There's a tsunami coming. Tsunami coming." And it
Wow.
was because they had the tsunami in Japan, and it was scheduled to come over through Hawaii.
Right.
And so I go, okay, and I look it up, and I see that it won't be till 2 a.m. that night. We can do our show. Everything's fine. I go, I'm introduced. I'm doing my show. I borrow $100, and I destroy it. Part of my act. And I'm going on with the show, and someone slips me a note from the staff, and it says, we have to evacuate the theater now. And
Oh,
okay, well, as a performer, you don't cause panic, and you just
right.
casually. I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, due to the nature of the tsunami, you all know about it. We're going to have to leave the theater at this time. So I'm going to turn the lights on. We're going to ask, and everyone just stood there laughing, or sat there laughing. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. I just been handed a note, and we're going to have to go. And they just started laughing at me. They thought it was part of the show. I don't go, look, I got a note like this. And they're laughing, and I'm going, really? We got to get up and go like this. And then finally someone goes, the $100 bill. Because I borrowed $100 bill from someone.
Oh, so they thought that's
I
part of
need to
that.
reappear real quick, and I give them the $100 bill back. Okay, show's really over. They get up and they're leaving, and they're buying DVDs, and they're shaking. I'm like, get out of here! And we literally had to evacuate the whole Front Street, the whole area, and go to high ground. And fortunately, nothing really happened. But yeah, we're
Praise
excited.
God. Well, we have 2 minutes left. Or
Okay.
can you encourage people? Remember, this show is in Russia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, in India, in Germany, all over the world, and people are watching and listening. How can you encourage them? I know you're a master.
I'm going to do it with just a little bit of string. I hope we can see this. I'm going to try
Yeah,
to
I
do
can
this.
see that.
A little bit of floss. There we go. Now I'm in the right frame. A little bit
Uh-huh.
of floss. Whoop, let me get right there so you can see. You know, when things happen in life, it feels like we're getting torn sometimes, Nazareth, whether it's a pandemic or loss of income, health problems, could be addictions, could be drugs, pornography, whatever it is. They tear at us, boom, and they just kind of get to us, and these things happen sometimes by our choosing, sometimes not by our choosing, and we don't really know why this happens. But you see, God has a plan for us. Let me get back there so we can see. I'm trying to stay in frame here. God has a plan for us, and see all those pains, all those injuries, all that hurt we have. God wants us to take that and not let it be a knot in your stomach, not let it be something that bothers you. He wants you to hand it over to God. Just there we go. Hand it over to God. It's like that. And God will support you with it. He will carry this load for you. He's promised that his burden is light. But even more important, God has plans for us.
Oh my
And though
Lord.
we get broken, God will restore us. I'll try to get back here. God
And
will restore us and allow us to be the loving human being we
so all these flosses that you cut in little pieces, now they're all one long string.
They're all one.
Amen.
all those
Amen.
all those all those pains, all those hurts you have out there, whether you're in Russia, St. Petersburg, Russia, or St. Petersburg, Florida, know that God will support you, and God will lift you up, and he'll take you through the hardest of times
Amen. How can people get a hold of you?
through you. If you want to get a hold of me, you go through Nazareth books, and that's the best way to do it. You get through Nazareth, or you can go to chris@chrisblackmore.com and send me an email. But I'd love to come see you, visit your church sometime, do a show.
Would love that. At chrisblackmore.com.
Yes,
Chris at Blackmore.
yes.
Chris, thank you so much.
Thank
Send
you.
my love to Dolly, your wife, and your family.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being with me and taking this time. I appreciate. Hopefully, we can work together very soon.
I hope so too, Nazareth. God bless you.
Love you, man. Thank you.
Love you
God
too.
bless
Bye
you.
bye, everyone.
Bye. And to those who are watching and people who are listening, remember at 8:30 tonight Pacific time, we're gonna have our regular nightly show live with Naz, where you can be funny for an hour with us and be encouraged. So join us at Comedian Nazareth on Facebook at 8:30 p.m. tonight and every weeknight. where we can laugh and be encouraged. Right now, my wife just arrived from being gone for 12 days. I'm going to go say hello to her and spend a little bit and then go back and do the show there. So, love you guys. Thank you so much for being with us. And please subscribe to the podcast and encourage your friends to subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much and good night. All right.